Why, hello there, and welcome to the Innovantage Podcast, where business meets tech to bring you a competitive edge. Today, I am your host, Max, and I am joined by my colleague and my friend, Vasil, who is the Chief Delivery Officer of the company Sigli, where he bridges the tech with the business through his work with clients, through his work with teams, and through delivering quality products all across the globe. And the reason why we're here today is to talk a little bit about AI, what the hell that is, why is it such a hypey topic, and demystify all of the things most people think about AI. So if you run a business, or if you are in business management, or if you just heard something about AI somewhere, sometime, and you want to understand how specifically you can actually bring value from those wonderful hypey things, hopefully, our discussion here today will be able to bring you exactly that. So, Vasil, thanks for joining me today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What the hell is it that you do?
Thanks, Max. So, my name is indeed Vasil, and I'm doing the delivery stuff. Basically, I'm making sure that our sales department do not overpromise and our production do not under-deliver. So that's just a balancing act of making expectations meet. Regarding the AI stuff, I'd say I'm a bit in the know of the topic because I majored in artificial intelligence a long time before it was mainstream.
How long? When was your initial influence with artificial intelligence?
You mean like when I've decided that artificial intelligence is cool? I suppose I've been influenced by popular culture like Terminator, like Star Trek with data. I mean, those kind of things kind of made me think that AI is indeed something that can be achieved by humanity.
And you studied AI in university, as far as I understand.
Yeah, that's right. But I'd say the choice was made not because I was interested in some, let's say, vague things. Maybe I knew that I was interested in everything computer related. Well, also before it was really mainstream, and I got curious. And AI sounded like something I do not understand completely because when you go into the programming, coding, you just operate on writing some lines of code and computer executes it and that's it. AI sounded like, well, it's something that probably is not coded, something that behaves like intelligence. And I guess that's why I've chose this as a topic of my university.
That's really cool. That's really cool to hear. Most people don't really feel like AI has been around for decades now, right? It's not something that your usual run-of-the-mill conversation surrounds about. Like, you don't really think that AI has been around that long. And you've been in university, like, how many years ago? 15?
More than 15,
More than 15 years ago, and you were already studying that on an academical level. So that's pretty cool. And me, myself, like, I've tried to be a coder, failed at it absolutely miserably. And for me, the difference between creating your basic run-of-the-mill code and actual AI is very, very different. So maybe you can clear it up a little bit. Like, what's the difference between your average run-of-the-mill computing or programming and actual AI systems that at least everybody is talking about right now?
Well, I'd say AI was a long time before even I've joined the university. So basic approach, let's call them expert systems, that was defined like 50 years ago or something. I mean, the studies, the thought experiments. Expert system, it's kind of narrowed AI. So let's imagine you have a lawyer.
Yeah.
You visit this lawyer with some specific questions you have on really specific narrow topic. And lawyer asks simple questions like, where were you born? What's the state you were residing, and so on. And based on the result of those questions, expert system, or well, lawyer in our case, just provides a document that can be then later used, submitted to authorities, stuff like that. So the expert system is basically a sequence of questions that allow the system to process results of those questions by rules defined by expert. In our case, some real human lawyer, and output some kind of result. So that kind of thing is really, really, really old. Like, I mean, before my birth or something. And indeed, it's really related to the usual coding stuff because it's based on the conditions like if something, then do something. It's really simple. The issue there, I guess, is just to define the rules. So the human expert should be really well experienced, understand what's going on in the field to provide a reasonable set of rules that can be and then coded into some solution. But I digress. So after expert systems, we get to, let's call it something that is considered like AI in current understanding. I suppose you're talking about systems like ChatGPT, where you just input your query and you get some kind of result.
That's the most famous one, I think. That's the one everybody has heard about in one way or the other. There was a South Park episode about ChatGPT, so everybody probably knows about it.
So indeed, it gets into, let's call it AI stuff, but still, let's try to define what's actual artificial intelligence means in our case. So as I mentioned, we had expert systems like concept of expert systems long time ago. And can we really call them artificial intelligence? Probably not exactly. Can we call ChatGPT-like systems artificial intelligence? Well, yes.
That's the question.
Yes and no. So let's try not to dive into deep definition topics and term defining. And well, just use the common sense that we are, as humans, are indeed the most powerful because current large language models like ChatGPT, I'd say the biggest issue for them to actually process something is the absence of common sense. They do not have common sense that humans do. And I guess that's like the defining role between real, let's call it general artificial intelligence and what we currently call AI.
AI has been around for a while, right? Any sort of programming can be called AI, like you mentioned yourself. Can ChatGPT be called AI? It's a debatable topic, right? It depends on how you approach it and what is it that you believe is AI. And there were systems beforehand, and even ChatGPT existed before it became popular, right? It became popular with the version 3.5, I believe, right? And beforehand, there were other versions. So what's the difference of the current systems? Why are they considered, at least in the public mind, to be real, true AI systems rather than the ones that came before?
Well, I suppose that's just the impression, media influence, let's say, and the availability of such systems. Because like with expert systems, I did code them in university, but the interfaces, the way they're supposed to be presented to the general public, well, it was hard. It was like a specific environment, IDEs with those rules defining like what should happen if that, what should happen if that. And yeah, I guess it's too narrow, too, let's call it scientific, maybe. It never got the public attention. And with ChatGPT, like everyone heard about it, at least something. And
that's true.
When everyone hears about it, people just start using it all over and over, meaning all corporations, businesses, they want to get the competitive edge because AI is really asked about everywhere. And basically, if you own a product, you most likely would like to add something AI-based there in any case. So I suppose that got the push for AI to be like really well known everywhere.
Yeah. I think it's like one of the most popular, or probably the most popular service to reach 1 million users, right? It was the fastest in our recent memory. So the people really do want something like this to make their lives a little bit better. But I wonder whether or not it succeeds. I guess we will see in the future a little bit. And from what I understand, again, is that for any AI system, or specifically a large language model, you need a lot of data in order for it to be effective. And there's a lot of talks about what kind of data do those systems have access to, right? Whether or not it was gathered legally or illegally, whether or not systems like Midjourney create art based on others people's arts, and that those people did not really agree to that. So it's all about data, right, at the end of the day. So can you a little bit talk more about how that data aspect connects to those kinds of systems? Where does it come in, and how does it work even?
Okay, so let's also do some classification of such models. As I mentioned earlier, we've got expert systems where the data is not something that expert system is actually using, because it has a proxy by the human expert who operates with that data, creates a set of rules that are later on executed during the performance of such expert system. Then we dive into, let's call it, it is called machine learning part, where we have systems that do operate on some kind of data, but there are no strict rules because for machine learning, human experts, developers, data engineers, data analysts, there are a lot of names of the profession, but basically they define the model on how this data should be gathered, processed, and what should be output. So the rules are defined in the model definition, and data is being gathered by various sources. It can be some internal data from the company, like data on sales of apartments in specific city. Like, for example, based on such data, it is possible to predict the cost of the square meter in some district of 3 rooms apartments, something like that, based on the previous data. So here we have like more or less controlled data where we have to define the model first and then just prepare the data for this model to be ingested. And I guess the most well-known large language models are something that are not really, let's say, simple and transparent to be understood by their designers. So large language models are built on the neural networks that kind of mimic human brain. It also is
that is not frightening at all. Please continue.
Okay. I'd say it's indeed not frightening just because it's more of an abstraction. Basically, a neuron is something that has inputs, and usually it's a single output. And neuron based on the input. So let's say we have a neuron that has 2 inputs and 1 output. And if the first input of the neuron is triggered, the output also will be triggered. If the second input of the neuron is triggered, output won't be triggered. So that's like a basic definition of how a neuron might work. And then you get those neurons and put them in the millions, thousands of layers, and you just build a large model. Then you put something on the input of those sets of neurons and expect some kind of output. And that's how those models are working. You basically throw them some data. In our context, that would be text. As you probably interact with ChatGPT, from the beginning, it operated just in text because it's really simple. Well, not really simple, but the simplest approach. So you just shoot data into the neural network, get some output. if the output is not good enough, you say to the model that it should be adapted just a bit. And you check whether you are satisfied with the output or not. That's how it's been trained. But the thing is, no one really knows what will happen if you put something on the input and how the data would pass through all those layers of neurons and what be outputted. So indeed, those questions regarding the sources of the training for such large language models are, well, really important, because you have you might train your model to be really good at what it does, or it might really fail. But still, I kind of digress. So,
but it seems human, right? It seems like it's something that a human might write, a lot more than it used to be, at least.
But that's the purpose of such models, meaning they operate on input of text and they convert this text into the different text. Like, for example, if you let's say go to some programmer, you provide the programmer with instruction, and the programmer from this instruction tries to create some code. So you can
the operative word being try, right?
you can see some relation between it. So both are converting some text input into some kind of text output.
That's an interesting parallel. I think nobody has, well, at least in my case, I've never thought about it that way. It is very similar. Interface of how you communicate is very, very well connected with the programmers writing code and ChatGPT writing stuff. And since we're on the topic already, help me understand. And I'm guessing some of our listeners and some of our viewers might not understand a lot of what you've said. So, in the end of the day, you've mentioned a lot of interesting concepts. Me being connected to those concepts, I work in the industry and I see them implemented a lot. Even for me, it's very hard to understand the implications of them, the intricacies of how they actually work. So let's try and bring it down a little bit to those of us that don't really know how it works and don't really interact with it in the level that you and I used to, or rather you are used to. You mentioned machine learning, right? You mentioned large language models. I know that there are other concepts out there, and a lot of them are all just a part of the larger whole that we together call AI, right? So can you really simply, succinctly just boil it down? What the hell is AI for somebody who does not understand at all?
Well, back to definitions, I guess.
Very simple ones.
AI, let's call it a huge set of everything related to something that machines can do quite similar to what humans can do. In our case, that would be something. Human also can calculate two numbers. Calculator does it better, but we do not call calculator to be artificial intelligence. So let's make it a bit more complex. So something a bit complex that machine can do as good as human does, or maybe better.
So an imitation of what a human does, basically, at least for now.
And that, I guess, is also a definition, like whether you should consider artificial intelligence to be just a tool or a different species at all. So let's focus on the artificial.
Let's not go into philosophy.
Being just a tool for the moment. A tool,
a nice tool, I guess.
Nice tool. So expert systems, nice, quite straightforward to understand. But they do not provide you with, let's say, impression of intelligence, meaning they ask you questions and they provide some kind of result, and that's it. No.
And the result does not have to be factual or real, it just needs to look real.
Well, it can be completely real, meaning...
It can, but it does not have to be.
Yeah.
As far as I understand, of course.
Okay, then we get into the set of machine learning, where we have a lot of data, but we have control over how this data is being processed, meaning we define on our own the model. In our case, that might be something like apartment-related, date of sale, size of the apartment, and so on as parts of the model. And then we throw data into that model, and we check on how to use it. And then we get into the topic of deep learning with large language models and stuff, where we do not define the underlying model for the data we are going to process. We just define kind of infrastructure with the neural network, where we have a lot of neurons. They are kind of interconnected into different layers, and we just throw data there and expect to get some kind of result. So the most impressive part, I'd say, is for large language model, when you basically have no idea how it will answer, even if you are creator of this large language model. You can have some, let's say, ideas, but you cannot answer for it.
I'd like to say that I understand, but like a language model, I'll just pretend that I do.
Okay.
And and we also touched a little bit on the popular consciousness, like your Terminators, your Matrixes, your everything else. And that's where most people know AI from, right? They didn't study it at university. I sure didn't. And a lot of the time when you think AI, you think of a dystopian future where humanity no longer exists. Would you say that that is a misconception? Or is that maybe a grim reality that is just some time away for us?
It really, really depends on our own behavior.
Okay, so how good do I need to be to ChatGPT to survive? Let's define the parameters.
Oh, there are numerous thought experiments, like with certain basilisk and so on. But yeah, let's not dive deep into it. And I just say that indeed the grim reality can happen, meaning the evil AI as omnipotent solution that will try to exterminate humanity due to some issue that it decided to do, is certainly a possibility. Actually, there is a possibility to see a dinosaur outside. But it's still just a possibility.
Oh, yeah.
And indeed, we should take care to be a bit careful with designing of even large language models and how we are going to use it. Because if you, let's say, enable ChatGPT to interact with internet, if you, let's call it, I'm calling it ChatGPT because it's a simple term, but I'd say it's like Xerox or something like that.
Okay. Again, I'll pretend that I understand what you mean.
It's just a name of one of the possible large language models that probably everyone knows.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just simpler for me to refer to it.
Feel free.
Something like ChatGPT.
Okay.
So if you enable this model to interact with internet, if you do some kind of prompt engineering and just push the system to do something, it will definitely do. Such experiments have been made. It can start a website if you give it some money, and it will be able to buy a domain and to use some kind of no-code or low-code platform. So it's not an issue for even large language model to interact with, let's say, real world. By real world, I mean the internet setup. At some point, not even at some point, even currently, it's possible for artificial intelligence to mimic as a real human because, you've seen the generated images, I believe.
Oh, yes.
It is possible to generate video streams as well. And text, it's something that can be done really well nowadays.
I've seen a recent product by Microsoft, I feel like, that they take an image and they make a whole speaking person out of that singular image. And it looks very, very convincing. So,
yeah, I mean, even now, artificial intelligence could be trying to overtake the world, or maybe it already done it. But yeah, we'll be able to learn about it a bit later, I suppose.
Then the next question comes, are we already artificial intelligence and just don't know it yet? But that is for another episode, I hope. So yeah, let's then talk a little bit about the specifics, since we've already mentioned applications. So what are some of the, day-to-day applications that are used out there for actual businesses, that businesses leverage? It's nice thinking about the big picture, but it's already being used. And you mentioned the use case of calculating data of purchasing behind real estate, right?
Yeah, like forecasting or something.
Yeah. What are some others out there?
Well, I mean, with AI being really mainstream currently, it is being used in basically it's being used or is going to be used in basically all Office applications that are being created by major writers like Google, Microsoft, and so on. That one is, the basic applications here is to some kind operate on the content, meaning take some input, let's say, from the user and create some kind of content based on that input, or operate a bit differently and help user to ingest content that was created by someone else. So let's say there is a huge PDF of 20 pages that should be processed by, let's say, in 5 minutes to just get a gist of it and understand whether you want to read it fully or not. So that's where tools like ChatGPT and, AI stuff can be used.
And I'm guessing like a 20-page PDF is a big one for a human to read, but for an AI, like a 20,000 pages PDF and a 20 pages PDF are about the same size when it comes to actual work being done.
Yeah, that's right. For AI, it's indeed really simple to operate on the huge amount of data. It never gets tired. It never gets distracted. It just processes. It doesn't have any emotions. Like, for example, if you had a bad morning, you probably might be not so clear on reading each line of text to understand. Right. You might just be distracted there. But AI just doesn't care about it. So that's a win part, lack of emotions.
I've heard somewhere that when tested against real doctors, AI actually showed more emotions. Again, emotions is a word I use very lightly here. But again, it's not a scientific paper. I've just heard it in a conversation somewhere. But the gist of it is that exactly what you're saying, that an AI does not get tired. It does not have a bad day. It does not have a divorce, or it does not get sick. So it is always polite, always willing to help, and always has the access to 100% of its knowledge. So at the end of the day, it's even more polite and more tolerant than a lot of real human doctors who are notoriously overworked and usually underpaid as well.
That's right. I mean, like the basic use of AI in the business would be to offload some part of work of first-line support, for example.
Yeah.
So we might even leave some human interactions there. So human might talk to another human, but consult with the documentation of, let's say, some specification of the product that the first line support helps to serve. And yeah, that's where AI might help. So the human talks to human to just have the common sense part, because sometimes it's hard to explain even to ChatGPT what you exactly mean. There is a human-to-human interface, but in the background, the human from first-line support would be able to just talk to the AI specifically, let's call it chatbot, specifically trained for the purpose of retrieving documentation. And it indeed will just reduce the time to respond to the end client.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned support specifically, because I think support is somewhere where AI, again, chatbots rather, have been implemented for many years now. And I think I speak for everybody when I say that everybody hates them. So what do you think? Will the situation get better or worse when it comes to actual support for actual clients by actual humans?
Well, I'd say it depends on the cost to quality ratio. I mean, even now, it might be possible to introduce some kind of almost real first line support based on the existing technology. But it will cost a lot, just the running part of the neural networks to process, the processing time and stuff like that. It might cost much more than just a pure human who can talk and sit and interact.
And in terms of cost, like how much does it cost? Like a subscription to ChatGPT costs like $22 or euros or whatever. So when implementing at scale at businesses, I'm guessing the costs are very different. I guess you cannot get away with $22 and that's it. But where does that cost go with? Like, what is it based on? Like, how does it even work?
Well, the basic infrastructure for models like ChatGPT is a huge amount of video cards. Like, this is the same video cards that GPUs that were used for the Bitcoins, for cryptocurrency and stuff.
So out of the Bitcoin mines into the AI mines they went.
Yeah, that's how it works. they always work. And it depends, because there are quite a lot of subscription models for the major providers like NVIDIA, Microsoft, almost everyone who has had a bit of GPU for rent are providing those services. Or you can build your own on-premises setup with also stack of GPUs and run it there. But yeah, indeed, in some cases it might go to the, as I mentioned, it depends. If you are using the, let's say, commercially available model that you've purchased completely for yourself and you do not need to retrain it, the query cost is like usually around several cents just for that.
So several cents per query. So that's
yeah.
like per interaction with the model.
Yeah, but I mean, that also depends on the providers and stuff like that. If you are going into the training part, when you have your own data that you need to fine-tune model to, it definitely will cost more. But yeah, the pricing at this stage is something that's hard to define, because with large language models, you cannot expect like 100% result on every query. So it's also a balance of how much you are going to invest on the quality of result you might get. But you definitely won't get human. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I hope so too. That we still have a place somewhere in the world that we have ourselves created. And my question would be like, is that the same for the future as well? Because a couple of years ago, nobody heard about AI. Now everybody's talking about it. And like I said, one of the most used apps on the internet right now, right? What will happen in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? You and I will probably live that long. Maybe, who knows? But probably we'll see what will happen in 10, 20, 30 years. And what do you think? Like, where does the wind blow? What will we see? Will we see something better, something worse, something more or less the same? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'd really like to be positive here because, I want to think that everything will be kind of getting better. But yeah, hard to predict for more than 5 years, because indeed the technology is changing really, really fast. And we can say that, my personal expectation would be for the systems like ChatGPT to evolve a bit into personal assistant setup. And by personal assistant, I mean not just something you type some text into and get a full-blown email in a different language, and you can just hit send and forget about it. By personal assistant, I mean something that can interact with daily life by checking your health, for example. So kind of expert system that is able to help you to really live a better life. Even the communication part. So everyone's saying the communication is a key in business, and indeed, it's really hard to express your thoughts to make sure that the person you are talking to actually understands you, because we have all a bit of different background and we have our own definition of words. There is a concept in artificial intelligence setup called frame. You might heard the saying like frame of reference or something like that. So let's say we're talking about room. When you say room, you imagine something probably square with walls, maybe a door, maybe with a window, maybe without window. And for each person, such definition of word really differs.
True.
And I suppose, I really hope that personal assistants on the ChatGPT basis might help us to communicate in the way that we will be able to send our thoughts in a good way. Meaning, ChatGPT-like model will just expand the meaning of the certain word of concept that I'm saying, ChatGPT. You see, I'm constantly saying ChatGPT, but actually I mean the systems like large language models and stuff. So
I think their branding is working. in marketing and in branding, they always tell you, if people start using the name of your product to mean the thing that it does, then you have succeeded in branding. So now we're using ChatGPT, we're not using a large language model or a chatbot. So good for them. Good for them.
But what I'm saying is for the personal assistant to translate meaning of the concept of ChatGPT that I'm saying into something more bigger, maybe more defined definition. And on, let's say, your end, your own personal assistant will convert this large expanded meaning of the word into something that you can ingest in the really fast way, something like that.
Well, we will see, I guess. We will see how that goes. I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm as optimistic as you. I've also seen some movies. The Matrix has been my favorite, at least when I was younger. So not a very bright version of the future in terms of AI, that one. Although it did have a happy ending in the end, so who knows? But a lot of potential for misuse and a lot of potential for people to just, lose something rather than gain something. And it's hard to say where it will go. But personally, like on the personal level, I also use ChatGPT, of course. Not only ChatGPT, but other models. But to simplify, yes, I do use them. And in my university studies, I've studied linguistics, so languages, interpretation specifically, and different ones. And I've been like a multicultural person from the very beginning, like very, very early on. And I understand the role that language plays in our day-to-day lives, like how you say things, even regardless of in what language you say them. Naturally, like when you speak with people in other languages, it's hard to find common ground. Even if you're speaking the same language, but a little bit differently, it's always hard to find common ground. And the interesting thing is that even in its current state, the ChatGPT solution provides that bridge, because it used to be like translation used to be very hard. You cannot really translate the words. You need to translate what is being meant. And the things that can be meant are very, very different depending on the speaker, depending on the culture, depending on the context, depending on a lot of different things. And ChatGPT is very nice in kind of connecting that picture together. It does retain some context. I feel that that's one of the major things that made it so popular, because it has some context retention. You can train it a little bit yourself, like prompt engineering, basically, right? The job of the future, as they like to say, prompt engineering. Everybody will become a prompt engineer. That's all that we're going to do. But yeah, the context that it retains, it is actually able to translate not the words that are being said, but the things that are being meant. And that has been a very, very useful tool for me personally. Just looking at other languages through the prism of actually understanding them and asking the tool to explain something to me, what is being meant, is a very, very interesting thing. And that's the positive side of things, I believe, that it looks very nice. The negative side of things is, well, I'm afraid a lot of interpreters and translators are going to lose their jobs, unfortunately. But it is a tool. It is a tool, and if you use it and if you adapt to it, I believe that the future can be bright for everyone. So let's see. I like your optimistic view, at the very least. So talking about some other stuff concerning the solutions, and I've mentioned a little bit about it myself, but what do you use maybe besides ChatGPT? I'm guessing you use ChatGPT, right?
Oh, yeah.
We've said ChatGPT more times than anything else, any other word in our conversation today. Anything else that you use, or is it only ChatGPT and that's it?
Well, it's not ChatGPT. Well, it is kind of ChatGPT because Microsoft is having a huge investment there. But yeah, I'm using the Microsoft solution. It's just integrated into the Windows machine, and yeah,
that's the Copilot.
No, it's just being Copilot. I'm not sure about their current branding. They've been
ChatGPT's branding is much better. You don't even know what the hell that is, and you're using it. So maybe they can take a few pointers.
Well, something baked into my browser. So yeah,
something that works,
something that works,
and collects your data.
Well, that's the price you are going to pay by your data. And, subscription, of course. But, yeah. So I have a few scenarios there. Basically, when I need to write an email and I have a few bullet points, the solution helps, unnamed solution. If I have a huge document and I need to understand something from it, to get a, let's say, summary of the document, that's also a scenario. Also, in some cases, I need to understand the domain of the request from our potential clients. Mm-hmm. In that case, I just go into ChatGPT-like solution and try to ask questions to get the understanding of the domain, like on the basic level. I do cross-check it over different sources, of course. But the good thing about ChatGPT-like solutions is that they do not get annoyed. So you can ask questions, you can rephrase, you can ask them to, let's say, transform the text into something that even 5-year-old person can understand. And I suppose those are the most common solutions I'm using, use cases for that kind of stuff.
And you have a daughter, right?
Yep.
How old is she?
For almost 5.
Almost 5. Almost that level where ChatGPT can explain everything to her. So did you use AI solutions to explain something to your daughter because they are more, tolerant of questions of little children than you are? Or you're not there yet?
Actually, I do not trust ChatGPT in such cases. Yeah, I mean, there is no way to check that what ChatGPT answers is really true. I mean, there are different solutions, like I believe Gemini from Google, that do allow you to do a cross-check over the Google, meaning you can verify whether the answer from Gemini is actually Googleable, and there are some sources that say that the stuff there is true, but I wouldn't just give the answers from such models to my daughter because, human interaction, come on. Even the question might be different enough, so I'm able to understand what kind of concept my daughter is trying to ask me about, but I'm not sure the ChatGPT will be able to do it because, child lingo.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. You're using actual AI tools to make your work a little bit better and more efficient, to spend more time with your daughter instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
So I believe you're winning on that front at the very least. And again, I seen like a tweet or somewhere, someplace like that. When we envisioned AI, we were thinking about like, okay, it will free us some time to do arts and write stuff and have vacations. And we do not want to have AI write stuff and create pictures and do art instead of us, so we could work more. So your model is the preferred one. And I would definitely choose yours over not doing any sort of leisure or art and leaving that stuff to AI. And that's a very interesting use case because it creates and it shows a very specific limitation in the system itself, right? You cannot really trust it, and especially you cannot trust it in the hands of the next generation that is going to grow up with it already in their lives, right? When we were growing up, we didn't have internet in our lives. It came naturally and gradually, and then computers, smartphones, and everything else. We kind of experienced it, our generation at least, on ourselves. And the generation of your daughter will be already basically born inside all of this stuff. So what are the limitations of these systems that you see right now? Like, where do humans do stuff better than AI? So one thing is speaking to our children. That is good news. Mm-hmm. What else?
Well, before answering this question, I'd like to kind of refer to the topic you've started a bit, that the new generation is going to dive into the internet, into the environment where quite a few, I'd say almost majority by that time of the content might be ChatGPT generated, something generated, because from the times that we were growing up, our source of truth was, teacher, a book, then internet a bit, but still we did trust something. We had some kind of frame of reference to real stuff. But with the new generation, the data there and the ability to check the source of the data, the ability to understand whether you can trust it or not, is something that might be really important. And I guess the solution that might help in that case would be for the other humans to explain, you can trust this source and do not trust it, trust different source.
Uh-huh. And how do you choose which humans to trust and which ones to not?
That's a crazy story. I mean, it's really hard because the human might be good in some things. They might understand something better than I do, but in some topics they might be completely wrong. Yeah. So it's just tough story. I guess I'll better teach my daughter to kind of choose the right person of reference.
So critical thinking skills seem to become a very, very important skill, the more important than it used to be, at least for us. Like you said, for us it was simpler. Like you do what your mom and dad says, and then you read a book that the school says you to read, and then that's basically your frame of reference. You don't really have that much of an option. We didn't have access to all of world's knowledge at the tip of our fingerprints when we were young. And then when we gained access to that knowledge, we already had some critical thinking skills. At least maybe we did. Some of us maybe did. And hopefully a lot of us did, but some of us definitely did not. And how it will develop, I guess we will see. But I am also a huge believer in that human connection, like sitting here talking to one another instead of being on the screen or just reading about something that was said somewhere. It's harder to do, especially after the whole pandemic thing and everything else. Like being together, spending time together, getting closer to each other, it's become very hard to do, but the value of it, I think, has risen significantly. Like you see the impact of it, you value it a little bit more than you did before. At least I'm speaking for myself. Of course, I cannot speak for everybody else, but that kind of, again, humanity, personal touch. It matters at the end of the day, I think. But yeah, I guess I have no more questions for you, Vasil. Thank you very much for joining me today in our discussion. And thank you for joining us as well. Thank you for listening to us decoding the AI mysteries and trying to make sense out of which tools to use, which ones to not. Hopefully our examples of real use cases of real industries that already implement those solutions have been insightful. Maybe you know some more. So as you know, like and comment and share and whatever, and you can find us on our socials. If you want to know more about what we've talked about, and if you want to hear us talk some more, reach out to us, talk to us. Like I said, the human touch is also very, very nice, and we will be glad to help you out if we can. And that's about it. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you next time on the edge between tech and business.